Did you know that during the Great Plague of London in 1665, entire families vanished overnight, leaving their homes full of corpses? You think you could survive in a modern city, yet imagine stepping into 17th century London. Streets clogged with filth, rats scuttling in the shadows, and an invisible enemy that kills before you even know it's there. This story will take you through a single day in the life of someone trapped in the chaos of the Great Plague. From the moment you wake to the eerie cries in the streets, through terrifying encounters, horrifying public executions of the sick, and desperate attempts to find food and safety, you'll see why very few survived even a day. Prepare yourself. By the end, you'll understand the merciless reality of London in 1665, and why you would not last a single day. Before we start, it's a good idea to go to bed and relax. I also want to ask you to subscribe to my channel, like it and write in the comments where you are from and what time it is. Using the link in the description you can support me. Thank you. Sweet dreams. The morning air in London was thick with a stench that no one could escape. Smoke from countless fires mingled with the fetid odor of overflowing cesspits and the rotting remains of animals left in the streets. Even before the sun had fully risen, the city felt alive with a dreadful anticipation, as if it knew what the day would bring. People whispered in hushed tones, glancing nervously at their neighbors. Some dared not leave their homes, fearing the invisible killer that had already claimed tens of thousands. Others, driven by hunger or desperation, ventured into the streets, unaware that each step might be their last. Imagine waking up in a small, cramped house made of timber and plaster, walls blackened by soot, the windows barely allowing light in. Your body aches, but you must rise. Your family, if they are even still alive, depends on you. A groan echoes from the alley outside, and your stomach twists. Another victim. Rats scramble along the gutters, searching for scraps. They, unlike humans, seem indifferent to the plague. The day begins with small, almost trivial tasks. You sweep the dirt from the threshold, trying to breathe through a cloth pressed to your face. The streets are narrow, winding corridors lined with houses that lean into each other like conspirators in a dark plot. You hear the bell from St. Paul's ringing, announcing another death, though no one is there to mourn. The sound is almost comforting, a grim reminder that you are still alive. Venturing outside, the chaos becomes undeniable. Vendors shout over the din, trying to sell bread or ale to people who scarcely have coins. Children run through puddles in the street, their laughter strangely out of place amidst the coughing and wheezing of those already infected. You see a man stagger past, his face pale and sunken, black blotches crawling across his skin. He collapses, and no one helps. Fear has made people cruel, or perhaps numb. You walk further, passing houses with signs hanging crookedly from their doors, "Lord have mercy, infected within." Boards nailed across windows, white crosses painted in chalk. Inside, families huddle together, praying that the sickness will skip them, though all know better. From somewhere nearby comes a woman's scream, raw and piercing, and you feel a chill. It is a sound you will hear repeatedly, echoing down narrow alleys and empty streets. It is a reminder that in London, under the shadow of the Great Plague, survival is a fragile illusion. Even for someone who thinks they are strong, resourceful, or brave, a single day can stretch into a nightmare that never ends. Hunger gnaws, thirst burns, and every breath carries the possibility of death. The sun climbs higher, but it offers no warmth, only exposing the decay and despair. You pass a butcher's stall, meat hanging from hooks, flies buzzing in clouds. Few dare touch it. Even the animals, the cats and dogs that used to roam freely, have vanished, leaving silence and the occasional rat as companions. The streets are a labyrinth of fear. You learn quickly to avoid the cries of the sick, to skirt the pools of blood, to step around bodies that may still twitch. London's plague does not discriminate, but it is especially cruel to the unprepared. Every corner hides danger, some visible, some not. Your heart pounds, your hands shake, but you must continue. Because the day is only beginning, and death walks in the sand. As you move deeper into the city, the reality of life under the plague becomes impossible to ignore. Narrow cobblestone streets, slick with filth and rainwater, twist unpredictably. The houses crowd together, their upper floors sagging as if the weight of fear itself is pressing them down. Every step is accompanied by the sounds of suffering, coughing, wailing, doors banging as someone collapses inside. Occasionally, the unmistakable moan of the dying pierces the morning air. It is not a sound one grows accustomed to, it sticks to the mind, making every breath heavier. You pass a street corner where a group has gathered around a cart, atop which lie several bodies. Some are covered with rags, others are left exposed, skin marred by the telltale black and purple blotches. A man shouts, claiming they are already gone, but the reality is gruesome enough to make your stomach churn. People avert their eyes, but a few children stare curiously, unshielded from the horrors around them. You feel an urge to turn back, but turning back offers no sanctuary. The plague has already claimed entire neighborhoods, and the dead are everywhere. The market is a cacophony of desperation. Merchants shout, hawking rotten fruit or stale bread, their voices strained with fear and exertion. You notice a baker with his hands bandaged, a dark patch spreading across his wrist. He coughs violently, wiping sweat and blood from his face. Still, he refuses to close his stall. Business must continue, even if it means exposure to death. Nearby, a young woman weeps silently over a basket of eggs she cannot sell. Her husband, or perhaps her brother, lies somewhere in the street, blackened by the plague, their life extinguished while she survives. The smell grows more unbearable as you move closer to the river. Thames water, once a lifeline for the city, now reeks of decay. Dead animals float in the sluggish current, and you see a man stooping to collect water for his household. You cringe, knowing that contamination is inevitable. The river that sustains life has become a vector for death. Fishermen no longer cast nets, the few brave enough to attempt it are gaunt, their eyes hollow. Rats swarm along the banks, ignoring human presence. In their unthinking survival lies a lesson: life continues for some, but most will not last. Children, unaware of the full weight of the plague, dart between stalls and alleys. Some carry small bundles, scavenging food for their families, while others play near the bodies, unshielded from the horror. You see one boy pick up a dead pigeon and toss it back into the muck. He looks up at you, eyes wide, uncomprehending of death, yet instinctively aware that this is no ordinary day. Survival is already teaching him lessons you never wished to learn. In the alleys, the sick are often left to fend for themselves. You pass a man leaning against a wall, sweat pouring down his face, his skin mottled black. He murmurs incoherently, reaching out for something, anything. A passerby hurls a brick to drive him away. Compassion is a luxury, self-preservation is all that remains. You feel the tension in the air, a constant mix of fear, hunger, and unspoken agreement that each step could be your last. The day is only beginning, but already exhaustion settles in. Your lungs ache from the miasma, your legs grow heavy from constant vigilance. You have seen enough death to haunt your dreams, but the plague is relentless. No one is safe, and there is no certainty that safety exists anywhere. If you had thought yourself capable of surviving in London, these first hours have proven otherwise. Each breath carries the weight of mortality, each step is a gamble. As the sun climbs higher, shadows stretch across the narrow streets. Smoke from countless chimneys creates a haze that blurs the line between living and dead. And somewhere, in the distance, a bell tolls again. Another life lost, another family shattered. You tighten your grip on the bundle of bread you have scavenged, realizing that even this small victory may be fleeting. In London, under the shadow of the Great Plague, survival is a fleeting, fragile thing. And yet, the day is far from over. As you continue through the twisting alleys of London, the plague reveals its full mercilessness. You pass a small courtyard where a man lies slumped against a wall, eyes half closed, gasping for air. Black boils cover his arms and face, and a thin trickle of blood seeps from his nostrils. People pass him without a glance, carrying on as if he were already dead. You hesitate, unsure whether to help or flee. Compassion is dangerous here, proximity to the sick could be your death sentence. Every instinct screams at you to move quickly, but your humanity clings stubbornly, refusing to let you pass entirely unmoved. Further along, you encounter a woman with a bundle pressed tightly to her chest. She is coughing violently, her body racked by fever. Her eyes meet yours briefly, wide with panic, and she points down the street, pleading silently. Perhaps she wants help, perhaps she merely seeks to warn you. Either way, you cannot linger. The stench of illness is overpowering, clinging to her clothing, her hair, and even the air around her. You avert your gaze, forcing yourself onward, though the image haunts you. Rats scuttle across the cobblestones, some running over the bodies left behind in doorways. These creatures thrive where humans falter, unafraid of the sickness that claims us. In them, there is a grim lesson: survival requires ruthlessness and instinct. You follow the instinct, skirting corpses, dodging filth, and moving as silently as possible, hoping to avoid attention. Even the slightest cough could draw unwanted eyes, or worse, the attention of the city watch tasked with removing the infected. A cart creaks nearby, loaded with the dead. Men in masks and long coats push it slowly, shouting for people to clear the street. The bodies are piled high, black blotches visible on every limb, flies buzzing in thick clouds. One falls from the top of the heap as the cart jolts, landing with a sickening thud. A child cries nearby, and you feel a pang of helplessness. There is no time to grieve, the living must survive, or they will join the pile themselves. As the day wears on, you realize that hunger is as dangerous as the plague. Shops are empty, food scarce, and prices sky-high for the little that remains. People barter frantically, coins changing hands with trembling fingers. You spot a half loaf of bread discarded behind a stall, untouched. Fearful of contamination, you hesitate, but hunger prevails. You pick it up, dusting off grime, and take a cautious bite. Every mouthful tastes of dust and despair, yet it is sustenance enough to keep moving. A group of survivors huddles in a corner, whispering about rumors of the plague's origin. Some say it is divine punishment, others blame the rats or contaminated food. Arguments flare, tempers fray, and in the chaos, a man suddenly collapses. His companions stare in horror, unable to help, frozen by the suddenness of death. You avert your eyes again, the city teaching the cruelest lesson: no one is immune, and death waits for no one. The streets grow hotter and more oppressive as the sun reaches its zenith. Smoke from burning refuse mingles with the acrid smell of death. You notice the grime coating the walls, the dirt embedded in the cobblestones, and realize that the city itself seems alive with sickness. Every corner hides potential doom, every alley could conceal the next victim, or the next threat. The sounds of the sick, the dying, and the despairing merge into a symphony of terror. Even if you wanted to rest, there is no safe place. Your home offers no refuge, the neighbors may already be infected, and isolation is impossible in such crowded conditions. Every moment spent standing still is a moment closer to succumbing. You feel the weight of the day pressing down, and yet you must continue. Survival demands constant vigilance, and the streets of London leave no room for error. By mid-afternoon, your mind begins to reel. The sheer scale of suffering is overwhelming. Each alley, each doorway, each shadow could harbor death. You realize that even the strongest, most resourceful person would struggle to survive a single day in this city. Fear is constant, hunger gnaws, and the plague waits silently, invisibly, ready to strike without warning. And as the sun climbs higher, you understand: in London during the Great Plague, every breath is a gamble, every step a challenge, and every glance a reminder of your own fragile mortality. The air grows thicker as you venture into the heart of London, carrying a stench that no amount of cloth over your mouth can fully filter. The smell of rotting flesh, sewage, and smoke clings to your skin, saturating your senses. Even your eyes water as you navigate narrow alleys lined with houses that seem ready to collapse under their own weight. You glimpse bodies leaning out of windows, faces blackened with disease, silent pleas frozen in their eyes. The sight is unbearable, yet you must keep moving, there is no other choice. Dogs, once companions in the streets, are now either dead or scavenging with rats. The few that remain avoid humans entirely, snarling only when cornered. You see one small, scrappy dog dragging itself along the cobbles, ribs jutting sharply through matted fur. It is alive, barely, a testament to resilience, but it is also a warning: survival here is cruel, demanding, and rare. You turn your gaze away, focusing on the path ahead. Hunger gnaws at you, sharper than any fear. Vendors have long since abandoned their stalls, the market emptied of fresh food. You find a half-rotted apple, dirt-crusted and worm-eaten, yet it seems like a feast compared to your empty stomach. You take a hesitant bite, tasting more dust than fruit, but it is sustenance. You realize that every morsel comes with risk. Contaminated food, infected hands, or even the air itself could be a death sentence. But survival demands risk, indecision here is fatal. As you move, you hear the faint toll of a bell. A funeral, perhaps, or another tally of the dead. You have lost count of how many you have seen today, how many bodies have passed before your eyes. The city seems to vibrate with death, every stone, every shadow a reminder that life is fragile. In some courtyards, you glimpse hastily dug graves, shallow pits where bodies are dumped in the name of expedience. No ceremony, no prayers, only earth and decay. The people you encounter are shadows of their former selves. Faces drawn, eyes hollow, hands trembling as they clutch what little they own. You pass a man with a child clinging to his leg, coughing violently. Their skin is mottled, blotched with black. They notice you and recoil, fear evident in their eyes. You wonder if you are safe, if your brief passage near them could mark you as the next victim. The city is a web of invisible threats, and every interaction carries the weight of potential death. You stumble upon a small church, its doors ajar. Inside, the air is thick with incense, attempting to mask the odor of nearby corpses. A priest kneels in the shadows, muttering prayers for the departed. Few congregate here anymore, fear has emptied the pews. You pause briefly, the faint hope of sanctuary rising, only to hear a groan from the floorboards above. The sick and dying have found refuge here too, and no walls, no prayers, can keep death at bay. As afternoon stretches into evening, exhaustion settles into your bones. Your legs feel leaden, your stomach twists in constant hunger, and your mind reels from the relentless scenes of death and decay. Every corner holds a new horror, every alley a fresh reminder that survival is rare and fleeting. You are beginning to understand why very few last even a single day in London during the Great Plague. Smoke curls from fires lit to burn infected possessions, and somewhere nearby, a bell tolls once more. Each sound drives the point home: the city is alive with death, indifferent to your efforts, unrelenting in its cruelty. The sun begins to lower, but it offers no comfort, only casting long shadows that stretch across the streets, revealing bodies, filth, and despair. By the time you find a temporary hiding spot, a small corner between two buildings, you collapse, knees buckling, body shaking from fear, hunger, and exhaustion. The air is thick, and the distant cries of the dying haunt your ears. You realize that even now, though you have survived hours, survival is a fragile illusion. One wrong step, one cough from someone nearby, one contaminated morsel could undo everything. In London, during the Great Plague, even a single day is a trial beyond imagining, and the night promises no relief. As night falls, London transforms into an even more dangerous place. The shadows deepen, blending alleys and streets into a labyrinth of uncertainty. Fires flicker in hearths and in piles of burning refuse, casting eerie, dancing shapes on walls caked with grime. The sun's warmth has gone, leaving only a chill that sinks into your bones, and with it comes the certainty that the city itself conspires against you. Every sound is amplified: the squeak of a rat, the wail of the dying, the shuffle of footsteps in the distance. Fear clings to you like a second skin. The streets are largely deserted now, the living retreating indoors to avoid exposure. But isolation is no protection. From the shadows, the cries of the sick reach your ears, raw and desperate. Some stumble into the streets, delirious from fever, collapsing in pools of their own filth. You avoid them, skirting around their twisted bodies, your stomach twisting at the smell and sight. Compassion is nearly impossible, survival demands distance, a cold calculation that your mind struggles to enforce. You seek temporary refuge in a narrow doorway, crouching low to avoid drawing attention. The air is stale, suffused with the scent of rats and rot. You listen to the city's nightly symphony, coughing, moaning, the faint scrape of a cart moving corpses. Occasionally, the distant toll of a church bell reminds you of the countless lives lost today. You count nothing, numbers have lost meaning. Survival, not memory, is all that matters. A shadow moves across the street, and your heart leaps. A man, his face mottled black with plague, shuffles past, unaware of your presence. You hold your breath as he disappears into the darkness. You wonder how many more pass unseen, how many invisible deaths are already marking the hours. Each movement in the night carries danger, one misstep, one encounter, and your fate could be sealed. Hunger gnaws relentlessly, sharper than any fear. You scavenge what you can, stale bread, scraps abandoned in alleys, but even this small relief is fraught with risk. You wonder if every bite has been touched by the hands of the sick, contaminated with disease invisible to the eye. The plague respects no rules, it strikes without warning. Eating becomes a gamble, yet without it, you cannot last the night. You hear a faint knocking at a distant door. A family inside, perhaps, begging for help, or warning the world to stay away. You realize how quickly the city has become a place where communication is limited to cries, shouts, and desperate gestures. Trust is dangerous. Every interaction carries the potential for contagion, and yet the instinct to connect, even briefly, clings stubbornly. The night deepens, and shadows merge with the smoke rising from scattered fires. You see glimpses of bodies being loaded onto carts, the toll of death a constant presence. Fear and exhaustion blur together, making it hard to tell if your shivering is from cold, hunger, or sheer terror. London, once a bustling city, is now a hollowed landscape of suffering and despair. Sleep is impossible. Even if your body demands rest, the mind will not comply. The screams, the coughs, the low moans of the dying invade every thought. You cannot close your eyes, cannot escape the horror that stalks every corner. To survive even a few hours of night, you must remain vigilant, your senses sharpened, your movements silent. Yet the very act of staying alive is exhausting, draining every ounce of strength. By the time the first pale light of dawn begins to seep into the alleys, you are spent. Your body aches, your stomach cries out for food, and your spirit is battered by the relentless brutality of the city. And yet, you have survived the night. Barely. You realize that the morning brings no relief, only another cycle of fear, hunger, and death. The Great Plague of London does not pause, and neither can you. Every day is a test, every hour a challenge, and even one misstep could end your struggle for survival. Dawn breaks over London, but the city offers no comfort. The pale light reveals streets strewn with refuse, bodies, and the aftermath of a night of suffering. Smoke rises from small fires, burning discarded possessions, rotting food, and occasionally the dead themselves. The smell is unbearable, clinging to everything. Even the weak morning sun does little to chase away the filth, instead illuminating it in harsh clarity. You step carefully over the cobblestones, wincing at each crack, each pool of murky water that could conceal a rat, or worse, disease. Hunger is now a constant companion, sharper than fear itself. Yesterday's scraps are long gone, and the few remaining stalls have been stripped bare. The baker you saw collapse days ago is no longer tending his stand. Some merchants have boarded up their windows, leaving nothing for the desperate. You scavenge where you can, a half-rotten apple here, a stale loaf there. Each bite tastes of decay, but it is sustenance. Yet even as you eat, a lingering dread presses down, the knowledge that something invisible may already be infiltrating your veins. The city's inhabitants are shadows, moving cautiously through streets with the practiced wariness of prey. Those who survive this long are thin, eyes sunken, faces pallid. Many clutch the remains of loved ones, unable or unwilling to leave them behind. Others move alone, grim-faced, avoiding all contact. Some have resorted to violence, stealing what little they can find, striking without hesitation. Survival has stripped them of civility, leaving only instinct. You realize that, to last even another day, you must adopt the same ruthless pragmatism. Compassion is a luxury London will not permit. You approach a courtyard where a small group has gathered. A woman tends to a man collapsed on the ground, fever burning his skin, black sores crawling across his face. Her hands shake as she attempts to feed him water from a clay jug. You watch from a distance, unable to intervene. Any contact could mean death, yet the scene reminds you of the fragility of life. Fear has frozen their ability to act with safety in mind, yet some semblance of humanity persists. In this city, that persistence is as dangerous as it is admirable. A cart rattles by, carrying the dead to mass graves hastily dug at the outskirts. The bodies, stacked atop one another, are pale, bloated, eyes staring blankly. The men pushing the cart wear long coats, masks covering their faces, yet they cough and sweat, vulnerable to the disease they transport. You notice the flies swarming in dense clouds, circling the decaying corpses. Insects thrive here, indifferent to human tragedy. Their survival is a cruel reflection of life's tenacity when humans falter. You press on, moving through streets that twist and narrow, a maze that offers no escape. The cries of the sick echo in your ears, mingling with the distant tolling of church bells. Every sound reminds you that the plague spares no one. You glimpse a child crouched beside a dying parent, too young to comprehend the horror but old enough to sense fear. The child clutches a small rag doll, the only comfort in a world of despair. You glance away quickly, heart aching, knowing that there is nothing you can do. By mid-morning, exhaustion gnaws as sharply as hunger. Your limbs feel heavy, each step a challenge, yet movement is your only ally. Standing still increases the risk of encounter, and in London, encounters with the sick or desperate often end in death. You navigate narrow alleys, avoiding puddles, debris, and the occasional corpse that has been left where it fell. Even for someone prepared, the city is relentless. Every step is a gamble, every breath a risk. You pause briefly near a boarded-up window, catching your reflection in a streaked pane of glass. Your face is streaked with grime and sweat, eyes wide with exhaustion and terror. For the first time, you confront the truth: you are no longer just fighting the plague. You are fighting the city itself, the filth, the fear, the hunger, and the constant reminders of death. To survive is not a matter of courage alone, it requires vigilance, ruthlessness, and an acceptance of the horrors around you. As the morning sun climbs higher, you move again. Each alley brings new challenges, each street a potential death trap. The plague is patient, it waits in shadows, in the air, in every touch. And yet, you are still alive, though barely. In London, under the shadow of the Great Plague, survival is more than endurance, it is a battle against every instinct, every desire, and every hope. One day, 1 hour, 1 minute at a time, you continue to survive. By late morning, the streets of London grow eerily quiet. The frantic shouting of vendors and the constant clamor of carts has diminished, leaving behind only the occasional cough or groan. Fear has emptied the city, most of the living stay indoors, too afraid to risk exposure to the invisible killer that has already claimed tens of thousands. The silence is oppressive, broken only by the faint scrape of a wheel against cobblestone or the distant tolling of a bell. Every sound is amplified, echoing through narrow alleys like a warning. As you move cautiously, you pass a collapsed man sprawled across the stones, his skin mottled with black and purple. A puddle forms beneath him, reflecting the gray sky above. You hesitate, knowing that lingering too long could mark you as the next victim. Even now, instinct and fear guide your every step. Survival is a balance between speed, observation, and avoidance. One misstep, one touch, one shared breath could undo you. The city's despair is evident everywhere. Houses have boarded up windows, their occupants either dead or too frightened to emerge. Smoke curls from chimneys and refuse piles, mingling with the acrid stench of decay that saturates every street. The few who venture outside are gaunt, eyes hollow, faces pale. Some carry baskets of stolen food, others clutch bundles of personal belongings as though they could shield themselves from fate itself. The living here are prey and predator alike, each struggling against hunger, fear, and sickness. You pause near a marketplace, where a handful of survivors scavenge what remains. Rotten vegetables, moldy bread, and the occasional scrap of meat are fought over with desperation. You keep your distance, wary of drawing attention. Even small interactions are dangerous. A dropped coin or piece of food could lead to violence. Every gesture is calculated, every decision could mean life or death. The market, once bustling with life, now feels like a haunted wasteland, echoing with the ghosts of a city in decline. The heat of the late morning sun only worsens the stench of decay. Bodies in alleys swell, the skin splitting and releasing a sickly sweet odor. Flies swarm over the remains, oblivious to human presence. You avert your gaze, focusing on the path ahead, but the images haunt you. The city teaches harsh lessons: compassion is fatal, delay is deadly, and death is inevitable. Even the most resourceful cannot escape its reach. You come across a narrow alleyway where two children huddle together, one tending to the other's fevered skin. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear, and you notice the child's small hands shaking. You are torn between offering help and fleeing, knowing that contact could doom you both. They vanish into the shadows before you can act, leaving you with only the knowledge that human connection is a risk too great to take. In London, empathy can be as dangerous as the plague itself. Moving on, you pass a building with a makeshift sign: "Quarantine, do not enter." Inside, muffled cries and coughing can be heard. The owners have barricaded themselves, hoping to escape fate, but isolation is no shield. Those within are as vulnerable as those outside. The plague respects no walls, no doors, no prayers. Its reach is invisible, silent, and deadly. By midday, your energy wanes. Hunger gnaws relentlessly, and exhaustion weighs heavily on your body. Yet the streets remain unforgiving. Each step through the city is a gamble. Every turn of an alley, every glance into a doorway could bring you face to face with death. London under the Great Plague is not a place for the weak, the naive, or the compassionate. Survival demands ruthlessness, vigilance, and unflinching determination. As you continue, the bells toll once more, marking another life claimed. The sound is constant now, a grim rhythm underscoring the city's slow decay. The streets, silent yet filled with unseen peril, remind you that every breath taken here carries a risk. By the time the shadows begin to lengthen, you realize that even after hours of careful navigation, survival is precarious. Every moment, every step, is a testament to the delicate balance between life and death in a city overrun by the plague. By early afternoon, the heat of the sun presses down on the city, yet there is no relief in London. The streets shimmer with the smell of sweat, smoke, and decay. Each alleyway seems darker, narrower, more suffocating than the last. You pass a man slumped against a wall, his skin mottled black with plague sores, eyes half closed. He murmurs incoherently, reaching out for something you cannot give. You step around him carefully, heart racing. One misstep, one accidental touch, and the invisible disease could claim you as easily as it did him. The sounds of the sick are relentless. Coughing, wheezing, the low moans of the fevered, all blend together into a chilling symphony. Occasionally, you hear a woman screaming, raw with panic and despair. You flinch at each sound, forcing yourself to move faster, quieter, and with more purpose. In London under the Great Plague, every step is a negotiation with death, and every encounter carries risk. Even the living can become as dangerous as the dead. You find yourself in a small courtyard, where the remnants of a family cling together. Their faces are pale, their clothes filthy, and their eyes haunted. A small child cries softly, leaning against a mother whose strength has nearly abandoned her. You realize that no one here is safe, and that survival is less about luck and more about relentless determination. Compassion is a dangerous liability, the city teaches this lesson harshly. You move on, though the scene lingers in your mind, a reminder of what you cannot save. Rats scuttle across the cobblestones, utterly indifferent to human suffering. They thrive where humans falter, dragging scraps of food or carrion back to hidden corners. You watch one scurry past a corpse, indifferent to the horror, and shiver. In their survival lies a cruel reflection: instinct can outlast reason, and adaptability trumps morality. To survive, you must think like them, cold, calculating, and relentless. A bell tolls in the distance, a grim reminder of another death. You pause, catching your breath, and look around. The streets are eerily empty now. Most of the living have retreated indoors, barricading doors and windows, hoping isolation will protect them. But the plague is patient, invisible, and merciless. Even those who hide are not safe. You realize that staying still is as dangerous as moving, inaction is a trap. Hunger gnaws at you more sharply now. Yesterday's scraps are gone, leaving only desperation. You spot a half-rotted turnip abandoned in the street. The thought of eating it is revolting, yet hunger drives your hand. One cautious bite, and it is sustenance, bitter and foul though it may be. Survival requires accepting risks, even when the consequences are uncertain. Every decision, every choice, is fraught with danger. As the afternoon wears on, exhaustion settles into your bones. Your limbs ache, your head pounds, and your thoughts become muddled with fatigue. Yet the city does not slow, death does not rest. The sick and dying continue to stumble through alleys and streets, the carts carrying the dead rumble along, and the bell tolls relentlessly. London is alive with despair, decay, and the merciless tick of mortality. By mid-afternoon, you realize that the day is far from over. The sun may be high, but relief is nowhere to be found. Hunger, fear, and the constant presence of death press down on you like a physical weight. Every step requires vigilance, every breath a gamble. You have survived hours, but survival is fragile and fleeting. London under the Great Plague is unforgiving. Even the strongest and most careful are tested to their limits, and many fall before night arrives. As afternoon fades, the shadows in London grow longer and darker, stretching across narrow alleys and empty streets like fingers of despair. The city seems to close in around you, walls leaning, cobblestones slick with filth and rain, and the air thick with the stench of decay. The sun, now low, casts an orange glow that does little to warm, only highlighting the blackened, swollen bodies discarded along streets and doorways. Every glance is a reminder that death walks everywhere in this city. You pass a man who staggers along, coughing violently, his hands pressed against his chest. Black boils crawl across his face and arms. He gazes at you for a moment, eyes wild with fear, before collapsing into the muck. No one comes to help. The living have learned quickly, fear is survival, and every encounter is a gamble. Compassion has been replaced by caution, and every step in the streets carries the silent risk of contagion. The few people who remain outside move like ghosts. Faces are pale, eyes hollow, clothing filthy. Some clutch small bundles of possessions, others carry children, their cries muffled and fearful. Hunger has driven some to desperation. You glimpse a man tearing into a discarded loaf, flies swarming, and he pays no mind. Survival demands choices that would have been unthinkable before the plague: scavenging from the dead, stealing from neighbors, ignoring cries for help. Every instinct is recalibrated to a new, brutal reality. You round a corner and encounter a courtyard where a small group of survivors huddle. One woman tends to a man collapsed against the wall, fever burning his skin. Their whispered prayers are barely audible over the distant tolling of church bells. The air is heavy, filled with the scent of sweat, rot, and smoke. You hesitate, knowing that even the smallest misstep could bring the disease to you. The plague is patient, invisible, and unrelenting. Rats scuttle across the cobblestones, fearless and numerous. They feed on scraps, carrion, and each other. In their survival lies a bitter lesson: instinct and adaptability triumph over morality. To last in London, you must think like them, calculating, cautious, relentless. Your mind races as you plan every movement, avoiding corpses, steering clear of the fevered, and making mental notes of every potential hazard. A bell tolls once more, resonating through the empty streets. You realize it marks yet another death. The sound is constant, a grim reminder of the relentless tally of lives lost. Even the city itself seems to mourn, silent but suffused with the lingering echoes of suffering. Each toll deepens the sense of unease, pressing on your chest, making every breath heavier. Hunger claws at you with increasing intensity. You find a discarded turnip, foul and rotting, yet it offers sustenance. You bite cautiously, tasting dust, rot, and despair. In London, food is as dangerous as the plague, yet unavoidable. Each morsel is a risk, each decision a negotiation with mortality. Survival requires accepting these dangers, embracing fear, and trusting in quick reflexes and careful observation. By late afternoon, exhaustion is overwhelming. Your body aches from hunger and tension, yet stopping is not an option. The streets remain fraught with peril, the fevered stumble, carts transporting corpses rattle along the cobblestones, and rats weave between shadows. The sun dips lower, casting long, sinister silhouettes that seem almost animate. In London during the Great Plague, every hour survived is a fragile victory, every step a delicate negotiation with death. As the day draws toward evening, you find a narrow doorway to rest for a moment. The shadows are thick, the air stifling, and the cries of the sick echo in the distance. Sleep is impossible, the fear and the stench make it unbearable. You can only sit, tense, alert, and waiting, knowing that darkness brings new dangers. And still, despite the horror surrounding you, you are alive, one more day, one more hour, one more breath. But survival is tenuous. In London, under the shadow of the Great Plague, life is precious and fleeting, and death is never far behind. Evening descends on London like a heavy, suffocating blanket. The sunlight fades, leaving streets cloaked in gloom, the air thick with smoke, decay, and an ever-present sense of dread. The city's narrow alleys are labyrinthine, twisting unpredictably, each turn hiding the unknown. Shadows lengthen, merging with the blackened forms of corpses, discarded refuse, and the sick who stumble through the streets. Every step you take feels uncertain, every shadow a potential threat. You hear the faint clatter of a cart on cobblestones. It carries the dead, stacked atop one another, flies buzzing in thick clouds. The men pushing it wear long coats and masks, but even they cough and sweat under the weight of the disease they transport. You give them a wide berth, heart racing, knowing that proximity could mean infection. London's plague does not discriminate, it does not pause for the living. Every breath is a gamble, every movement a calculation. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. Yesterday's scraps are gone. Food is scarce, and those who venture out risk their lives for it. You spot a half-rotted loaf behind a shuttered stall, coated in grime. You hesitate, aware that it could carry disease, but your stomach demands sustenance. One cautious bite, and you gain enough energy to continue, but the taste of decay lingers, a constant reminder of the city's cruelty. Survival requires risk, and every risk carries consequences. The streets are eerily quiet, broken only by the occasional cough, groan, or scream. You pass a child clutching a ragged doll, eyes wide with fear, crouched beside a mother who barely moves. They have been here too long, the mother fevered, the child hungry and alone in spirit if not in body. You avert your gaze, knowing that offering help could doom both of you. London under the plague rewards vigilance, not empathy. Compassion is a luxury, and here, luxury can kill. Rats scurry along the edges of streets, indifferent to the chaos. They are survivors in a city that has turned deadly. In their movements, you see the brutal lesson of the plague: adaptability and instinct outlast morality. You move like them, careful, silent, alert, every step measured. One slip, one encounter, one breath taken too close, and death could claim you. The streets are unforgiving, the city a predator disguised as home. The distant tolling of church bells marks another death. You cannot tell whose life has ended, numbers are meaningless here. Each toll is a reminder that death is omnipresent, unrelenting, patient. It stalks the living invisibly, striking suddenly and mercilessly. Even the strongest, most cautious, most fortunate are vulnerable. You feel the weight of mortality pressing down, each sound and sight reinforcing your fragility. As twilight deepens, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, your body trembles from hunger and tension, and your mind struggles to remain sharp. Yet stopping is impossible. The streets remain dangerous, filled with the fevered, the dying, and the desperate. Every step is a negotiation with death, every glance a calculation. Even the darkness offers no safety, it conceals hazards as deadly as the disease itself. You find a small corner to crouch in, hidden from view. The stench of decay is overwhelming, the cries of the sick relentless. You force yourself to remain still, muscles tense, eyes scanning, ears straining. Sleep is a distant memory, a luxury the city will not permit. In London during the Great Plague, nightfall is no reprieve, it is merely another test, another gauntlet. Survival demands vigilance, ruthlessness, and a cold, unflinching focus on the grim reality around you. By the time darkness fully descends, you realize that a single day in this city is more than just endurance, it is a battle against every element: hunger, fear, decay, and death itself. You have survived hours, but each passing moment is precarious. London under the plague shows no mercy. Each breath is a gift, each step a gamble, and each hour a fragile victory in a city where death walks in the sand. Night has fully settled over London, and the city is transformed. The shadows merge with the smoke curling from small fires, and alleys that seemed dangerous by day are now terrifying. Shapes that were merely bodies or debris in daylight now appear as looming threats. The air is heavy with the stench of decay, a pungent, clinging reminder that death has claimed many and waits for more. Every breath feels contaminated, every step a challenge. Survival is a matter of instinct, vigilance, and luck. You move cautiously, crouching low in alleyways, avoiding the open streets where carts of the dead rattle by. Occasionally, a shadow moves in the distance, someone seeking food, someone fleeing illness, someone already on the brink of death. Each encounter is perilous. The sick wander without awareness, coughing and moaning, oblivious to the danger they pose. You step carefully, calculating every movement, weighing every choice. Even the faintest sound could betray your presence and draw calamity. The city's cries are constant. You hear a child wailing in the distance, a mother screaming for help that will not come. Somewhere, a man coughs violently, collapsing against a wall. Rats scurry past, completely indifferent, surviving where humans fail. Their fearless presence is a bitter lesson: instinct and adaptability, not morality, ensure survival. You cling to this lesson as you continue, every muscle tense, every nerve alert. Food is scarce. Hunger gnaws at you, relentless and sharp. You find scraps, stale bread, a half-rotted turnip, but each bite is a gamble. Contamination is invisible and omnipresent. The city itself seems to conspire against you, offering sustenance only at the risk of disease. Yet without eating, your body weakens, leaving you vulnerable to the very death stalking the streets. Survival requires risk, and risk is unavoidable. You round a corner and see a house marked with white chalk crosses. Inside, muffled cries and coughing indicate the plague has claimed its occupants. The doors are barricaded, windows sealed, but the illness is patient. Death cannot be contained by wood and nail. You pass silently, a witness to a horror that could have been your own fate. The city teaches brutal lessons, proximity is danger, and observation may be your only shield. The tolling of bells punctuates the night. Each chime marks another soul claimed, though their identity remains unknown. Numbers have lost meaning, only the weight of death pressing down in the streets remains. Even for the alert and careful, survival is tenuous. Every moment is a precarious negotiation between life and the invisible menace that waits in the air, in contact, in the filth and refuse. By late night, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, your stomach twists in hunger, and your mind strains to remain alert. Yet movement is essential. Standing still increases the risk of stumbling into a sick or dying person. The streets are a gauntlet of despair, and the city offers no sanctuary. You find a narrow doorway to crouch in, hidden from view but not from the stench or the cries. Sleep is impossible. Even if your body could rest, your mind refuses. Fear, hunger, and the stench of decay dominate your senses. Every shadow, every sound is amplified. In London under the Great Plague, night offers no relief. It is merely another test, another cycle of danger. Survival demands vigilance, adaptability, and an acceptance of a reality few could endure. As midnight passes, you realize that surviving even a single day in this city requires more than courage, it demands relentless observation, calculated movement, and a willingness to compromise morality for life. In London during the plague, life is tenuous, fleeting, and constantly shadowed by the inevitability of death. And yet, for now, you endure. The city at midnight is unrecognizable. London, once bustling with commerce and life, is now a ghost town, haunted by the wails of the sick and the silent testimony of the dead. The streets are slick with filth, refuse, and rainwater, and the air is thick with the acrid stench of decay. Shadows crawl along walls and alleys, seemingly alive, as if the city itself conspires against the living. Every step is measured, every breath calculated. You are acutely aware that one misstep could end your life. You move cautiously through narrow alleys, crouching low to avoid detection. Occasionally, the faint sound of a cough or groan echoes nearby, and your heart leaps. The sick wander aimlessly, oblivious to the danger they pose or the terror they inspire. You skirt around them, holding your breath, forcing your stomach to ignore the gnawing hunger that threatens to distract you. Hunger is as dangerous as the plague, it clouds judgment and slows reflexes, and in a city like this, every moment of distraction can be fatal. You stumble across a small group of survivors huddled around a fire, their faces gaunt and hollow. They are whispering urgently, eyes darting to every shadow, hands trembling. One coughs violently, the sound raw and wet, and you feel a surge of fear. Even their small fire offers no safety. Smoke rises, carrying the scent of flesh and refuse, attracting the unwelcome attention of rats and perhaps other desperate humans. Survival here requires not only vigilance but cunning and luck. Rats scurry past, fearless and numerous, their beady eyes reflecting the firelight. They feed on carrion, scraps, and even the fallen, oblivious to the horror around them. In their survival is a harsh lesson, adaptability and instinct outweigh morality and sentiment. You move like them, calculating every step, avoiding corpses, fevered humans, and contaminated food. Every sound, every shadow, every smell is a potential threat. You find a discarded loaf of bread near a boarded-up stall. Its crust is moldy, partially rotted, but it offers nourishment. You hesitate, aware of the danger in consuming contaminated food, yet your stomach will not wait. One cautious bite provides energy, but also a lingering reminder of the omnipresent threat that surrounds you. In London, survival is a constant negotiation with risk, every choice carries consequences. The distant tolling of a bell echoes across the city, each chime marking another life claimed. You cannot know whose, only that death is relentless, patient, and indiscriminate. Even the careful, vigilant, and fortunate cannot escape it forever. The weight of mortality presses down, a constant companion, reminding you that every step and every breath is a gamble. By the early hours, exhaustion begins to consume you. Your limbs ache, your mind fogs with fatigue, and hunger twists sharply in your stomach. Yet stopping is not an option. The streets remain perilous, filled with the fevered, the dying, and the desperate. Crouching in a narrow doorway, you force yourself to remain alert, every sense strained to detect movement, sound, or smell that might betray your presence. Sleep is a luxury the city will not allow. Midnight stretches into the early hours, the city alive with unseen danger. Every corner, every shadow, every whisper of movement could signify death. You understand, more acutely than ever, that surviving even a single day in London during the Great Plague requires not just courage, but unflinching vigilance, calculated risk, and a willingness to compromise humanity itself. In this city, life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually shadowed by the specter of death. And for now, against all odds, you endure. As the first faint light of dawn touches the rooftops, London reveals its horrors in stark relief. The night's shadows recede slightly, but nothing has truly changed. The streets are littered with debris, refuse, and corpses. Smoke still curls from small fires, carrying the acrid stench of rotting flesh. The city seems to exhale, revealing the devastation that the plague has wrought. Every alley, every doorway, every corner is a reminder of life extinguished too soon. You step cautiously into the morning, eyes scanning for movement, ears alert to the faintest sound. The living are few, most remain barricaded indoors, afraid to confront the outside world. Some wander aimlessly, fevered and delirious, their footsteps unsteady, their eyes glazed. Each encounter is a risk. A cough, a touch, a shared breath could be fatal. Survival requires constant vigilance, swift reflexes, and nerves of steel. Hunger presses relentlessly. You find a half-rotted apple, dust-coated and worm-eaten, abandoned in a street corner. Your stomach protests at the sight, yet you have no choice. One cautious bite, and you gain just enough energy to continue. In London during the Great Plague, every morsel is a gamble, and every decision carries consequences. Food, like safety, is never guaranteed. The tolling of church bells echoes in the distance, a relentless reminder of mortality. Each chime marks another lost soul, though their identity is unknown. The numbers are meaningless now, only the relentless presence of death matters. You move carefully, avoiding collapsed figures, narrow puddles, and alleys thick with refuse. Every step requires calculation. Every breath could carry disease. You pass a small courtyard where a family huddles, fear etched into their faces. The mother fevered, the father gaunt, and a child clinging desperately to the both of them. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with terror, pleading for an impossible rescue. You move on, knowing that stopping could mean your own death. London rewards vigilance, not empathy. Compassion is a risk too great, and survival depends on cold, calculated choices. Rats scurry fearlessly along the cobblestones, indifferent to the chaos. They feed on carrion, refuse, and each other, thriving where humans falter. Observing them, you recognize a brutal truth: adaptability and instinct are essential. To survive here, you must adopt their strategies: alertness, cunning, and relentless focus on self-preservation. By mid-morning, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, your body shivers from hunger, and your mind struggles to remain sharp. Yet the city is unrelenting. The sick and dying continue to stumble through streets, carts carrying corpses rumble along cobblestones, and the distant wails of the fevered haunt your ears. The plague is patient, invisible, and merciless. There is no pause, no reprieve, no sanctuary. The sun climbs higher, yet its warmth offers little comfort. Light exposes the horrors, highlighting blackened, swollen bodies, bloated from decay, and the ever-present filth. Even now, you know that survival is precarious. Every step, every glance, every breath is a negotiation with mortality. In London during the Great Plague, life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by the specter of death. By late morning, you have survived another stretch of hours, yet you realize that the battle is far from over. Hunger, exhaustion, fear, and disease press down on you with unrelenting force. Even a single day in this city is a trial beyond imagining, a test of instinct, cunning, and raw perseverance. And still, against every odds, you endure, one precarious moment at a time. The late morning sun presses down on London, offering no comfort, only heat that intensifies the stench of decay. Cobblestones shimmer with grime and moisture, reflecting distorted shadows of collapsed buildings and the few remaining survivors. The streets are mostly empty, but the occasional fevered wanderer staggers into view, coughing violently, skin blotched and blackened. Every step you take is cautious, measured, deliberate. One misstep could mean infection or confrontation with desperate humans. Hunger gnaws at you with increasing intensity. Yesterday's scraps are gone, and the few remaining morsels in the streets are either spoiled or contaminated. You find a partially rotted turnip discarded near a wall. The sight is repulsive, but survival demands action. One careful bite and you gain enough strength to keep moving. In a city like London during the Great Plague, food is both a lifeline and a potential death sentence. Every choice is fraught with danger. The few remaining humans are gaunt, desperate, and wary. You pass a man dragging a sack, his movements slow and unsteady, his eyes darting nervously at every sound. He stumbles, drops the sack, and hastily picks it up, barely glancing at the decaying bread inside. His survival depends on his vigilance and quick reflexes, just as yours does. The city has reshaped morality into a code of survival, caution over compassion, instinct over sentiment, and self-preservation above all. Rats scurry along the edges of the street, fearless and numerous. They thrive in this city where humans falter, scavenging what remains and avoiding the fevered wanderers. Observing them, you see a cruel truth: adaptability and instinct outweigh morality. To survive here, you must adopt the same unyielding focus on observation, calculation, and caution. One wrong move, and the invisible predator within the air could claim you. You round a corner and encounter a small group clustered in a shadowed courtyard. Their faces are pale, eyes sunken, hands trembling. One coughs violently, the sound wet and raw, echoing off the surrounding walls. You hesitate, knowing that stopping could doom you. Compassion is impossible, survival here is calculated, cold, and merciless. The plague does not pause for pity, and neither can you. The tolling of church bells reverberates through the city, each strike a grim reminder of mortality. The sound is relentless, echoing over rooftops and narrow alleys, a constant reminder that the living are fragile and fleeting. Even the most cautious, vigilant, and resilient are vulnerable. The weight of death presses on every corner, every shadow, every breath. By early afternoon, exhaustion begins to overwhelm you. Your body aches, your legs tremble, and hunger twists sharply in your gut. Yet movement remains essential. Every alley could conceal a fevered human, a corpse, or an unexpected hazard. Even in open streets, danger lurks. Carts transporting the dead rattle along cobblestones, rats scurry fearlessly, and the few remaining survivors move like ghosts, each step unpredictable and perilous. As the afternoon stretches on, you understand that survival in London is not merely about endurance. It is a constant negotiation with fear, hunger, and death. Every moment demands awareness, precision, and calculated risk. Even the city itself seems to conspire against you, a living entity that thrives on despair. One day here is enough to break the unprepared, and yet you endure, step by careful step, navigating the streets as if the city itself is a predator stalking your every move. The afternoon deepens, and London streets feel heavier, oppressive with the heat, the stench, and the ever-present shadow of death. The sun's glare illuminates the decaying bodies strewn across alleyways, their skin blackened and bloated, flies swarming over them in relentless clouds. Every breath you take carries the memory of the disease lurking invisibly in the air. Every step is a gamble. Even the faintest sound, the cough of a fevered human, the scuttle of a rat, sets your nerves on edge. You move cautiously through a narrow alley, your senses sharpened to the faintest noise. A man staggers into view, skin blotched and face streaked with sweat. He coughs violently, spitting blackened phlegm onto the street, oblivious to you. You freeze, muscles taut, calculating your escape. One wrong move, one misjudged step, and you could be the next victim. Survival in London during the Great Plague is not about bravery, it is about vigilance, caution, and ruthless observation. Hunger presses in relentlessly, gnawing at your stomach, clouding your thoughts. Yesterday's scraps are gone, leaving only the occasional discarded turnip or moldy loaf. You spot a half-rotted apple near a refuse pile, its surface covered with grime. You hesitate, knowing it may harbor disease, yet the gnawing in your stomach leaves you no choice. One cautious bite sustains you just enough to continue, a bitter reminder that nourishment in this city is inseparable from danger. The living are few, and their desperation is palpable. You pass a woman dragging a child, both gaunt, faces hollow, clothes tattered. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear, silent pleas for help lingering in the gaze. You avert your eyes, knowing that stopping could mean your own death. Compassion is impossible here, survival demands cold calculation. In London, mercy is fatal, and the only law is self-preservation. Rats scurry along the edges of the streets, fearless and numerous. They weave between the bodies of the dead and the living, scavenging and surviving. Observing them, you recognize a brutal truth: adaptability and instinct outlast morality and sentiment. To survive, you must adopt the same relentlessness, the same cunning, the same constant awareness of danger. One misstep, one careless movement, one shared breath could be your last. A distant church bell tolls, each chime a grim reminder of life lost. The sound reverberates through empty streets and narrow alleys, punctuating the city's oppressive silence. Numbers have no meaning, only the unyielding presence of death matters. Even the vigilant and cautious cannot escape its reach. London itself seems alive with despair, its very streets whispering warnings to the living. By late afternoon, exhaustion takes hold. Your legs ache, your body shivers from hunger and tension, and your mind grows foggy. Yet movement remains essential. Standing still increases the risk of stumbling upon a fevered human, a corpse, or another hidden hazard. Even open streets offer no safety. The city has become a gauntlet, each step a perilous negotiation with mortality. As evening approaches, shadows stretch long and dark across the streets. The city feels alive with invisible threats, each corner concealing danger. You find a narrow doorway to crouch in, hidden yet aware that nothing in London offers true safety. Sleep is impossible. The stench, the hunger, the cries of the sick, and the constant reminder of death prevent rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise everything you once believed about humanity. By nightfall, you realize that even a single day in London during the Great Plague tests the limits of endurance. Hunger, fear, and disease press in from every direction, leaving no room for error. Life is fragile, fleeting, and precarious. And yet, against all odds, you endure, one tense, careful, cautious moment at a time. Twilight descends over London, turning the streets into a palette of grays and shadows. The sun, now a dim orange glow behind clouds of smoke, offers no warmth, only exposure. The streets are littered with refuse, rotting food, and the unmistakable remains of those the plague has claimed. Shadows stretch unnaturally long, twisting along walls and puddles, hiding hazards both living and dead. Every movement feels fraught with danger, every breath carries unseen risk. You move carefully, scanning the streets and alleys for signs of life or death. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles into view, coughing violently, their skin mottled and blistered. You freeze, holding your breath, calculating the safest route to pass unnoticed. One misstep, one accidental touch, and the invisible predator in the air could claim you. In London, survival is a dance with danger, measured step by careful step. Hunger claws at your stomach relentlessly. You find a discarded piece of bread, covered with dust and mold. The smell is vile, but survival demands sustenance. One cautious bite provides temporary relief, yet each morsel is a risk. In this city, nourishment and death are often intertwined, every choice is a gamble with mortal consequences. The living are scarce and desperate. You spot a woman carrying a child, both gaunt and pale, moving cautiously along the cobblestones. Their eyes meet yours for a fleeting moment, wide with fear. Any interaction is dangerous, stopping could result in confrontation or disease. Compassion is a liability here. London has reshaped morality into a survival code, vigilance over empathy, caution over kindness, and self-preservation above all else. Rats scurry along the edges of streets, fearless and numerous. They move between corpses and abandoned refuse, thriving in a city where humans falter. Observing them, you understand a harsh truth: adaptability and instinct ensure survival, while morality and sentiment can be fatal. You move with the same careful awareness, calculating each step, avoiding the sick and the dead, navigating the streets as if the city itself is a predator stalking your every move. The tolling of church bells echoes through the empty streets. Each chime marks another death, another life claimed, though you cannot know whose. Numbers have lost meaning, only the unyielding presence of mortality matters. Even the vigilant, cautious, and strong cannot escape. London seems alive with despair, the city itself a witness to human frailty. By late afternoon, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, your body trembles from hunger, and your mind struggles to remain alert. Yet you cannot stop. Each alleyway could hide a fevered human, a corpse, or another unexpected hazard. Even the open streets are dangerous. Movement is not optional, it is a necessity for survival. As night approaches, darkness thickens, swallowing the city in shadows. Shapes that were merely bodies by day now appear monstrous, and every corner seems to conceal unseen threats. You crouch in a narrow doorway, hidden but alert. Sleep is impossible. The stench, hunger, cries of the sick, and ever-present shadow of death offer no reprieve. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to forsake compassion for life. In the fading light, you reflect on the sheer brutality of London under the Great Plague. Every moment is a test of instinct, calculation, and perseverance. Life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually threatened by death lurking in every shadow. And yet, despite everything, you endure, careful, watchful, and alive for now. Night falls fully over London, shrouding the city in darkness that feels almost tangible. The narrow streets twist and turn, their corners swallowing sound and light alike. Smoke from small fires rises, carrying the stench of decay and burning refuse. Every shadow seems alive, stretching unnaturally across walls and alleys, hiding the fevered, the dead, and the desperate. The city has transformed into a living nightmare, where every step, every breath, carries risk. You move cautiously, avoiding the open streets where carts transporting corpses rattle along cobblestones. The distant groans of the sick echo, making your skin crawl. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles into view, eyes glazed, skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, planning each careful step to avoid detection. One accidental touch, one shared breath, one misjudged movement, and the invisible disease could claim you. Hunger gnaws sharply. You scavenge what you can: dusty bread, half-rotted vegetables, scraps abandoned in the streets. Each bite is a gamble, each morsel a risk. The city teaches a brutal lesson: survival requires calculated risk, and every choice carries consequences. Food is both sustenance and potential poison, and your instincts must navigate that treacherous balance. The few living humans you encounter are shadows of their former selves, gaunt, hollow-eyed, trembling with fever, fear, and exhaustion. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway. A mother clutches her child, her hands trembling, eyes wide with terror. You avert your gaze, knowing that any interaction could be fatal. London during the Great Plague rewards vigilance, not empathy. Compassion is a liability, and survival requires cold, calculated action. Rats scurry along the edges of streets, unafraid, weaving between corpses and abandoned refuse. In their fearless movement, you recognize a harsh truth: adaptability and instinct ensure survival, whereas morality can be fatal. You move like them, silent, alert, cautious, calculating every step, avoiding both the living and the dead, navigating the city as if it itself were a predator stalking your every move. The tolling of church bells resonates across the empty streets, each chime marking another death. The sound is unrelenting, a grim reminder that mortality spares no one. Numbers are meaningless, the presence of death is constant. Even the vigilant, the cautious, and the strong cannot escape it forever. London seems alive with despair, the city itself a witness to human fragility, its streets echoing the wails of the sick and the dead. By midnight, exhaustion begins to consume you. Your legs ache, your body shivers from hunger and tension, and your mind grows foggy. Yet stopping is impossible. The alleys conceal fevered humans, corpses, and unforeseen hazards. Even open streets are treacherous. Movement is essential, to pause is to invite death. You find a narrow doorway to crouch in, hidden yet fully aware of the lurking dangers. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying offer no reprieve. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality for life. In London, life is tenuous, fleeting, and constantly threatened by the specter of death. As you sit, alert and tense, you understand the cruel truth: even surviving a single night in London under the Great Plague is an extraordinary feat. Every breath, every step, every decision is a delicate negotiation with mortality. And for now, against all odds, you endure. As the first light of a new day struggles through the smoky clouds, London is quiet, almost unnervingly so. The streets, littered with refuse and corpses, are devoid of normal human activity. Even the few fevered souls who wandered last night have retreated or collapsed. The silence is not peaceful, it is heavy, oppressive, and haunted by the remnants of countless deaths. Every footstep echoes unnaturally, each sound amplified in the deserted cityscape. You move cautiously, alert to the faintest hint of danger. The air is thick with the scent of decay and disease. Occasionally, a groan or cough pierces the stillness, a reminder that life and death coexist precariously here. You dodge a man who has collapsed mid-stride, his face mottled with black boils, and feel a shiver of horror. Survival demands constant vigilance, even the briefest lapse in attention could be fatal. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. Yesterday's scraps are gone, leaving only the occasional moldy loaf or decayed vegetable to be scavenged. You find a partially rotten carrot and examine it carefully, weighing risk against necessity. One cautious bite sustains you, but the bitterness reminds you that every act of survival is tainted with danger. In London, sustenance and peril are inseparable. The few remaining humans are desperate, gaunt, and wary. You pass a man dragging a small bundle of possessions, eyes wide with fear, his movements tentative. They notice you briefly, then avert their gaze. Trust is a luxury that no one can afford here. Compassion can be fatal, and survival requires cold calculation. London has rewritten the rules: only vigilance, cunning, and adaptability can preserve life. Rats move freely along the edges of the streets, scavenging and thriving amidst chaos. Observing them, you understand a bitter lesson: instinct and adaptability are the keys to survival, while sentiment and morality can be fatal. You move like them, calculating every step, avoiding the sick and dead, navigating the city as if it were a predator stalking your every move. Church bells toll in the distance, a grim soundtrack to the city's suffering. Each chime marks another life lost, another soul claimed. Numbers have lost meaning, only the constant presence of death matters. Even the careful, vigilant, and resourceful cannot evade it forever. The city itself seems alive, a malevolent entity feeding on fear, despair, and mortality. By mid-morning, exhaustion weighs heavily. Your legs ache, your body shivers, and hunger twists sharply in your gut. Yet pausing is impossible, movement is essential. Narrow alleyways conceal fevered humans, corpses, and unknown hazards. Even open streets offer no true safety. Every step is a negotiation with mortality. You find a shadowed doorway to crouch in, hidden yet fully aware of the dangers around you. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the sick leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to forsake compassion for life. In London under the Great Plague, life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually threatened by the specter of death. As the sun rises fully, you reflect on the harsh reality: each day in this city is a battle against fear, hunger, and the invisible killer in the air. Every breath, every step, every decision is a gamble with mortality. Yet, despite all odds, you endure, navigating the city's haunted streets one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. By mid-morning, the streets of London pulse with a quiet, terrifying energy. Though many have barricaded themselves indoors, the few who wander move like phantoms, fevered and delirious, barely aware of their surroundings. Their faces are pale, eyes glazed, skin mottled and blackened from the plague. The city feels alive with their suffering, every groan and cough echoing off the walls of narrow alleys, turning the streets into a labyrinth of peril. You move cautiously, keeping low and avoiding the open areas where carts carrying the dead might appear. A man stumbles past, coughing violently, his hand pressed against his chest as if to keep the disease contained. He does not notice you, and you slip past, heart racing, muscles taut. Every movement must be deliberate: one misstep, one careless breath, one accidental touch, and you could join the ranks of the dying. Hunger presses relentlessly. Your stomach gnaws at you, urging you to scavenge for whatever you can find. You spot a half-rotted turnip lying abandoned near a refuse pile. The thought of eating it is revolting, but survival demands risk. One careful bite provides just enough energy to continue. In London, food is a necessity wrapped in danger. Every choice is fraught with peril, and each morsel comes with the invisible threat of death. The few living humans are wary, gaunt, and desperate. You pass a woman carrying a child, her movements slow and trembling. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear. You avert your gaze, knowing that stopping could bring danger to both you and them. Compassion is impossible here. Survival requires cold calculation and unflinching focus on one's own life. The city has rewritten the rules: only vigilance and adaptability will keep you alive. Rats scurry along the edges of streets, fearless and numerous. They weave between corpses and refuse, thriving in a city where humans falter. In their survival is a brutal lesson: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. You move like them, silent, alert, and calculating, avoiding both the living and the dead, navigating the city as if it were a predator stalking your every step. Church bells toll in the distance, a grim reminder of death's omnipresence. Each chime marks another life claimed. Numbers are meaningless, only the presence of mortality matters. Even the vigilant, cautious, and resilient cannot escape forever. London itself seems alive with despair, its streets echoing with the wails of the sick and the tolling of the dead. By afternoon, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your gut, and tension tightens every muscle. Yet pausing is impossible. The streets conceal fevered humans, corpses, and unknown hazards. Even open spaces offer no true safety. Movement is essential, inaction is a trap. You find a narrow doorway to crouch in, hidden yet fully aware of the dangers around you. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and a willingness to compromise morality for life. London under the Great Plague is a city where every breath, every step, and every decision is a negotiation with death. As the sun climbs higher, you realize the cruel truth: surviving even a single day in this city is an extraordinary feat. Life is fragile, fleeting, and constantly threatened by death lurking in every shadow. And yet, despite it all, you endure, one careful, tense, and calculated moment at a time. By late afternoon, the streets of London have become a nightmare of filth and decay. The sun hangs low, casting long shadows over piles of refuse, discarded belongings, and the bodies claimed by the plague. The air is thick with the stench of rot, sweat, and smoke from small fires burning in alleyways. Every inhale carries the memory of death, every step threatens exposure to disease, and every shadow seems to conceal a hazard. You move cautiously, alert to the faintest sound. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles into view, coughing violently, skin blotched and blackened. You freeze, heart pounding, muscles tense, calculating your path to safety. One wrong step, one shared breath, or one accidental touch, and you could join the ranks of the dead. Survival in London demands constant vigilance, swift reflexes, and the ability to ignore moral hesitation. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. Yesterday's scraps are gone, leaving only decayed vegetables or moldy bread. You find a half-rotted apple, coated with dust and flies. The thought of eating it is revolting, but your stomach protests too strongly to ignore. One cautious bite gives you enough energy to continue. In this city, sustenance comes at the cost of risk, and every morsel is a gamble with mortality. The few remaining humans are desperate and wary. You pass a man dragging a small bundle of possessions, eyes wide with fear, movements unsteady. Their glance meets yours briefly, a silent plea for safety or assistance. You avert your gaze, knowing that even a moment of compassion could be fatal. London has rewritten the rules, vigilance and calculation outweigh empathy, and self-preservation is paramount. Rats move freely along the edges of the streets, scurrying between corpses and refuse, thriving where humans falter. Observing them, you recognize a harsh truth: adaptability and instinct are key to survival, while morality can be fatal. You mimic their precision, moving silently, calculating every step, avoiding the fevered and the dead, navigating the city as though it itself were a predator stalking your every motion. Church bells toll, each sound a stark reminder of mortality. Every chime marks another life claimed, though the identities are unknown. Numbers are meaningless, only the omnipresence of death matters. Even the most vigilant, cautious, and resilient cannot avoid it indefinitely. London seems alive with despair, the city itself bearing witness to human fragility. By evening, exhaustion overwhelms your body. Legs ache, stomach twists with hunger, and your mind strains to remain alert. Yet pausing is not an option. Narrow alleyways conceal fevered humans, corpses, and unforeseen hazards. Even open streets are treacherous. Survival demands constant movement, careful calculation, and unflinching attention. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet aware of the dangers surrounding you. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and cries of the dying allow no respite. Survival requires vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to forsake compassion. In London under the Great Plague, life is tenuous, fleeting, and constantly threatened by death. As night approaches, the city grows darker and more oppressive. Every corner hides potential danger. Every sound, a cough, a groan, the scuttle of rats, heightens tension. You understand that even surviving a single day in this city is a feat of endurance, calculation, and raw instinct. And yet, despite the relentless peril, you endure, moment by careful moment, navigating the shadows of death. As twilight descends, London transforms into a city of shadows and unease. The remaining light stretches along the cobblestones, casting elongated shapes that twist unnaturally across walls and piles of debris. Fires burn weakly in alleyways, their smoke curling into the thick, stagnant air. The stench of rot and disease is pervasive, mixing with the smell of sweat and fear. Every breath feels contaminated, every step a calculated risk, and every shadow threatens unseen danger. You move cautiously, avoiding open streets where carts of the dead might appear. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles past, coughing violently, eyes glazed, skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, calculating the safest path forward. One misstep, one shared breath, one accidental touch could be fatal. Survival in London under the Great Plague is not about bravery, it is about vigilance, patience, and cold calculation. Hunger gnaws relentlessly. The streets offer little, moldy bread, half-rotted vegetables, scraps left behind by those who fled or succumbed to illness. You spot a discarded turnip, partially decayed and crawling with small insects. The thought of eating it is repulsive, yet necessity outweighs revulsion. One cautious bite gives temporary strength, a reminder that survival in this city demands risk at every turn. The few humans you encounter are desperate, gaunt, and wary. You pass a small group huddled in a doorway, eyes wide with fear, trembling as they whisper quietly to one another. Any interaction could be fatal, stopping could attract attention or provoke violence. Compassion is impossible here. London has rewritten the rules, only adaptability, calculation, and vigilance preserve life. Rats scurry fearlessly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and discarded refuse. Observing them, you understand a bitter truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, calculating, and relentlessly focused on preservation. The city itself seems to feed on human weakness, rewarding the cunning and punishing the hesitant. Church bells toll in the distance, each chime marking another life lost. The sound reverberates through empty streets and narrow alleys, a grim reminder that mortality is omnipresent. Even the most careful and resilient cannot escape it indefinitely. London seems alive with despair, a predator cloaked in brick and shadow, feeding on fear and mortality. By late evening, exhaustion begins to dominate. Your legs ache, your body trembles from hunger, and your mind grows foggy with fatigue. Yet stopping is not an option. Every alleyway conceals fevered humans, corpses, or unknown hazards. Even open streets offer no sanctuary. Survival demands constant movement, careful planning, and unflinching attention. You crouch in a narrow doorway, hidden yet hyper-aware of the dangers around you. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival requires vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. In London under the Great Plague, life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually shadowed by death. As darkness deepens, you realize the unrelenting truth: even surviving a single day in this city is a test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every choice is a negotiation with death. And yet, against all odds, you endure, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. Night falls over London like a suffocating shroud, thickening the shadows and amplifying every sound. The narrow streets are quieter than usual, but the silence is deceptive, heavy with unseen threats. Fires burn weakly in abandoned doorways, casting flickering light that only heightens the sense of danger. The stench of rot, smoke, and unwashed bodies fills the air, making every breath a risk. London under the Great Plague is a city alive with fear and death, and every step you take is fraught with peril. You move cautiously, hugging the edges of the streets, avoiding open spaces where carts transporting corpses might rattle by. Occasionally, a fevered human staggers past, coughing violently, eyes glazed and skin mottled. You freeze, muscles taut, heart pounding. Every step must be calculated, every breath measured. One wrong movement, one shared inhalation, one accidental touch, and the invisible disease could claim you instantly. Survival in this city is not about courage, it is about vigilance, patience, and relentless calculation. Hunger gnaws at your gut with unrelenting persistence. Yesterday's scraps are gone, leaving only decayed vegetables or moldy bread. You find a half-rotted apple, coated with dust and crawling with tiny insects. The thought of eating it is revolting, but necessity overrides disgust. One cautious bite sustains you just enough to continue moving. In London, sustenance is inseparable from danger, and every morsel is a gamble with mortality. The few living humans you encounter are desperate, hollow-eyed, and wary. A small group huddles in a doorway, whispering frantically to one another, their movements slow and cautious. You pass them silently, knowing that stopping or interacting could attract attention or provoke danger. Compassion is a liability, survival demands cold calculation and focus on one's own life. London has rewritten the rules of humanity, only adaptability, observation, and calculated risk preserve life. Rats move fearlessly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and discarded refuse. Observing them, you understand a bitter lesson: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, alert, and constantly aware of your surroundings. The city seems alive, feeding on weakness, rewarding cunning, and punishing hesitation. The tolling of distant church bells punctuates the night, each chime marking another life claimed by the plague. Numbers are meaningless, only the presence of death is real. Even the most vigilant, cautious, and resourceful cannot escape forever. London seems to breathe despair, the city itself a predator hunting the living through alleyways and deserted streets. By midnight, exhaustion weighs heavily. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your stomach, and mental fatigue clouds your judgment. Yet stopping is impossible. Every alleyway may conceal a fevered human, a corpse, or another hazard. Even open streets are dangerous. Movement is essential, inaction is a death sentence. You find a narrow doorway to crouch in, hidden but alert. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying allow no rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. In London during the Great Plague, life is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually shadowed by death. As the night stretches on, you understand a grim truth: surviving even a single day in this city requires constant awareness, swift calculation, and unyielding instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a delicate negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless peril, you endure, one tense, measured, careful moment at a time. The night grows darker, and London streets become a labyrinth of shadows and fear. The faint flicker of dying fires illuminates narrow alleys, casting twisted silhouettes over piles of refuse, abandoned belongings, and corpses. The air is thick with the stench of decay, sweat, and smoke from scattered fires. Every breath feels tainted, every step a calculated risk, and every shadow conceals a potential hazard. You move cautiously, hugging walls and staying close to corners. Open streets are dangerous, where carts carrying the dead might appear without warning. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles into view, coughing violently, their skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, mind calculating the safest path to pass unnoticed. One misstep, one shared breath, one accidental touch could be your last. Survival is a relentless exercise in vigilance, observation, and cold calculation. Hunger presses in, sharp and unrelenting. Yesterday's scraps have long disappeared, leaving only decayed vegetables or moldy bread scattered in the streets. You spot a half-rotted carrot, crawling with insects. The thought of eating it is repulsive, but necessity outweighs disgust. One cautious bite gives enough energy to continue moving, a bitter reminder that sustenance in this city is inseparable from risk. The remaining humans are desperate, gaunt, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering frantically to one another. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear. Any interaction could be fatal, even a moment of hesitation could draw attention or provoke danger. Compassion is impossible here. London under the Great Plague demands cold calculation, adaptability, and relentless focus on self-preservation. Rats move fearlessly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and discarded refuse. Observing them, you realize a cruel lesson: instinct and adaptability outlast morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate their focus, silent, alert, and constantly aware of your surroundings. The city seems alive, feeding on human weakness and rewarding cunning, punishing hesitation and error. Distant church bells toll, their sound echoing across empty streets and narrow alleys. Each chime marks another life claimed. Numbers are meaningless, only the omnipresence of death matters. Even the vigilant, cautious, and resourceful cannot escape it indefinitely. London breathes despair, a predator cloaked in brick and shadow, stalking the living through alleys, doorways, and abandoned thoroughfares. By the early hours of the night, exhaustion gnaws at your body. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your stomach, and your mind struggles to stay sharp. Yet you cannot stop. Every alleyway conceals fevered humans, corpses, or hidden dangers. Even open streets are fraught with peril. Survival demands constant movement, meticulous calculation, and unflinching awareness. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet fully aware of your surroundings. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival requires vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London under the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by death. As the night stretches on, a grim realization sets in: even surviving a single day in this city is an extraordinary test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you endure, one careful, tense, and calculated moment at a time. As dawn struggles to pierce the thick, choking fog over London, the city seems even more oppressive than before. The early light barely illuminates the streets, leaving corners and alleys shrouded in gray shadows. Smoke from scattered fires curls into the fog, blending with the pervasive stench of rot, unwashed bodies, and disease. Every step feels uncertain, every breath carries risk, and every shadow conceals potential peril. You move cautiously, hugging walls and avoiding open streets where carts transporting corpses might appear. Occasionally, a fevered human emerges from the mist, coughing violently, skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, eyes scanning for the safest route. One misstep, one accidental touch, or one shared breath could be fatal. Survival demands constant vigilance, patience, and relentless calculation. Hunger gnaws mercilessly. Yesterday's scraps are long gone, leaving only decayed vegetables, moldy bread, or fruit half-eaten and abandoned. You find a partially rotted turnip near a refuse pile. Its smell is repulsive, but necessity outweighs disgust. One careful bite provides enough energy to continue, a bitter reminder that sustenance and peril are inseparable in this city. The few remaining humans are gaunt, desperate, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering frantically. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear and silent pleas. Any interaction could be deadly, stopping may draw attention or provoke danger. Compassion is a luxury no one can afford here. London under the Great Plague demands cold calculation, adaptability, and relentless focus on self-preservation. Rats scurry fearlessly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you recognize a harsh truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate their focus, silent, alert, and perpetually aware of your surroundings. The city itself seems alive, feeding on weakness, rewarding cunning, and punishing hesitation. Church bells toll in the distance, echoing across empty streets and alleyways. Each chime marks another life claimed, another soul claimed by the plague. Numbers have lost meaning, only the omnipresence of death is real. Even the vigilant and careful cannot evade it forever. London seems to breathe despair, a predator cloaked in brick, fog, and shadow, stalking the living through narrow streets. By mid-morning, exhaustion sets in. Your legs ache, your body shivers from hunger and tension, and your mind strains to stay sharp. Yet you cannot pause. Every alleyway conceals fevered humans, corpses, or hidden dangers. Even open streets are unsafe. Movement is essential, stillness is death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet alert. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London under the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by death. As the fog thickens and the city remains shrouded in shadow, you understand the cruel truth: surviving even a single day in London is a battle of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every choice is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you endure, one tense, measured, and careful moment at a time. By late morning, the fog begins to thin, but the streets of London remain heavy with despair. The remnants of human life move like shadows, fevered and delirious, while the dead lie scattered, some already partially consumed by rats. The stench of rot is overwhelming, mingling with the smell of smoke from small fires and refuse left to decay. Every breath is a gamble, every step a calculated risk, and every shadow holds potential danger. You move cautiously, sticking close to walls and avoiding open streets where carts carrying corpses might appear. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles past, groaning, their skin mottled, eyes glazed, body trembling. You freeze, muscles taut, calculating the safest path to avoid them. One misstep, one shared breath, or one careless touch could be fatal. Survival requires constant vigilance and relentless focus, a test of both mind and body. Hunger claws relentlessly at your gut. The streets offer little in the way of sustenance: moldy bread, decayed vegetables, half-eaten fruits abandoned by the desperate. You find a rotting potato lying near a wall. The smell is nauseating, yet necessity outweighs disgust. One cautious bite sustains you enough to continue. In this city, nourishment is inseparable from risk, and every morsel comes with the potential for death. The few remaining humans are gaunt, desperate, and wary. You pass a man dragging a small bundle of belongings, his eyes wide with fear. He notices you briefly but quickly averts his gaze. Any interaction could be dangerous, even a moment of hesitation might draw attention or provoke violence. Compassion is impossible here. London has rewritten the rules: adaptability, calculation, and self-preservation are paramount. Rats scurry unafraid along the edges of streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you understand a harsh truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, alert, and constantly aware of your surroundings. The city itself seems alive, feeding on fear and weakness, punishing hesitation, and rewarding cunning. The tolling of distant church bells echoes across the deserted streets. Each chime marks another life claimed, another soul lost to the plague. Numbers are meaningless, only the constant presence of death matters. Even the most vigilant, cautious, and resilient cannot evade it forever. London itself breathes despair, a predator cloaked in brick, shadow, and smoke, stalking the living through alleys and abandoned thoroughfares. By early afternoon, exhaustion begins to dominate. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your stomach, and your mind struggles to remain sharp. Yet pausing is impossible. Every alleyway could conceal fevered humans, corpses, or unseen hazards. Even open streets offer no safety. Movement is essential, stillness invites death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet fully aware of your surroundings. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying allow no respite. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London during the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by death. As the afternoon stretches on, you understand the brutal truth: surviving even a single day in this city is a test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you endure, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. By late afternoon, hunger has become an almost unbearable companion. Your stomach twists painfully, gnawing at you, demanding food that is scarce and perilous. The streets offer little, discarded scraps of bread, rotting vegetables, or half-eaten fruit left behind by the desperate. Each choice comes with a risk, a morsel may sustain you or poison you. In London under the Great Plague, survival is a constant negotiation between necessity and danger. You move cautiously, hugging the shadows and avoiding open spaces where carts carrying the dead might appear without warning. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles into view, coughing violently, skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, calculating the safest path to pass unnoticed. One misstep, one shared breath, or one accidental touch could be fatal. Vigilance is essential, hesitation can be deadly. You spot a half-rotted carrot lying abandoned near a wall. The stench is nauseating, but hunger drives you to take a careful bite. It provides temporary energy, enough to keep moving through the streets. In this city, sustenance is inseparable from risk. Every morsel is a gamble with mortality, every act of survival a test of instinct and nerve. The few remaining humans are desperate, hollow-eyed, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering frantically to one another. Their eyes meet yours briefly, a silent plea for safety or assistance. You avert your gaze, knowing that any interaction could be fatal. Compassion is impossible. London has rewritten the rules. Vigilance, adaptability, and self-preservation are the only means to endure. Rats move boldly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you recognize a harsh lesson: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, and relentlessly aware of your surroundings. The city itself seems alive, feeding on human weakness and punishing hesitation. Church bells toll in the distance, a grim reminder of death's omnipresence. Each chime marks another life claimed. Numbers have lost all meaning, only the presence of mortality matters. Even the most vigilant, cautious, and resilient cannot escape it forever. London seems to breathe despair, a predator stalking the living through alleys, streets, and abandoned corners. By evening, exhaustion weighs heavily. Your legs ache, your body shivers from hunger and tension, and your mind struggles to stay alert. Yet pausing is impossible. Every alleyway conceals fevered humans, corpses, or hidden dangers. Even open streets offer no refuge. Movement is essential, stillness is death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden but fully aware of the dangers around you. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and a willingness to compromise morality. Life in London under the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and constantly threatened by death. As night falls, the grim reality becomes clear: surviving even a single day in this city is a battle of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a delicate negotiation with mortality. And yet, against all odds, you endure, one tense, measured, careful moment at a time. Midnight blankets London, and the city feels alive with unseen predators. Every shadow twists unnaturally along the walls, every alleyway holds unknown danger. The faint glow of dying fires barely illuminates the streets, and the thick stench of decay, disease, and smoke hangs heavy in the air. Each breath feels like a gamble, and every step could lead to a deadly encounter. London under the Great Plague is a city where life clings by a fragile thread. You move cautiously, hugging walls and avoiding the open streets where carts carrying the dead might appear without warning. Occasionally, a fevered human staggers into view, coughing violently, their skin mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, calculating the safest path to avoid detection. One misstep, one shared breath, one careless touch could be fatal. Survival requires constant vigilance, swift reflexes, and unflinching attention to detail. Hunger gnaws sharply. Yesterday's scraps have vanished, leaving only moldy bread, rotting vegetables, or partially eaten fruit. You spot a half-rotted apple on the edge of a street, crawling with small insects. Its smell is nauseating, yet necessity drives you to take a cautious bite, providing temporary strength. In this city, sustenance and peril are inseparable, every choice is a gamble with death. The few remaining humans are gaunt, desperate, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering frantically. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear. Any interaction could prove deadly. London has rewritten the rules, adaptability, vigilance, and self-preservation are paramount. Compassion is a luxury that this city does not allow. Rats move boldly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you learn a cruel lesson: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, and perpetually aware of your surroundings. London itself seems alive, feeding on fear, punishing hesitation, rewarding cunning. The tolling of distant church bells punctuates the night, each chime marking another life claimed. Numbers are meaningless, only the omnipresence of death matters. Even the most vigilant, careful, and resilient cannot evade it forever. London seems to breathe despair, a predator stalking the living relentlessly through alleyways and abandoned streets. By the early hours, exhaustion threatens to overtake you. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your gut, and your mind struggles to remain alert. Yet stopping is impossible. Every alleyway hides fevered humans, corpses, or unforeseen hazards. Even open streets offer no refuge. Movement is essential, stillness is death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet fully aware of your surroundings. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London during the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by death. As the night deepens, you realize the unyielding truth: surviving even a single day in this city is a test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless peril, you endure, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. As the first pale light of dawn filters through the smoky haze, London appears deceptively calm. The streets, littered with debris and corpses, lie eerily silent. Fires burn weakly in abandoned doorways, their smoke curling into the misty morning air. The stench of decay, unwashed bodies, and disease clings to everything, a constant reminder that survival is precarious. Every step carries risk, every breath is a potential threat, and every shadow could conceal death. You move cautiously, hugging walls and avoiding open streets where carts transporting corpses might appear. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles past, groaning weakly, skin blotched and blackened. You freeze, muscles taut, eyes scanning the safest path. One misstep, one shared breath, or one careless touch could be fatal. Survival requires unwavering vigilance, patience, and calculation. Hunger gnaws sharply. The streets offer little: moldy bread, decayed vegetables, and partially eaten fruits left behind. You find a half-rotted carrot lying near a wall. Its stench is revolting, but necessity forces a careful bite. The small morsel provides enough energy to keep moving. In London under the Great Plague, nourishment is inseparable from danger, and every choice carries mortal risk. The few remaining humans are desperate, gaunt, and wary. You pass a small group huddled in a doorway, whispering quietly. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear. Any interaction could draw attention or provoke danger. Compassion is impossible. London has rewritten the rules: only vigilance, adaptability, and self-preservation can ensure survival. Rats scurry boldly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and refuse. Observing them, you recognize a harsh truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, and constantly aware of your surroundings. The city itself seems alive, feeding on weakness, punishing hesitation, and rewarding cunning. Church bells toll distantly, echoing across the deserted streets. Each chime marks another life claimed by the plague. Numbers are meaningless, only the omnipresence of death matters. Even the most vigilant and cautious cannot avoid it indefinitely. London seems to breathe despair, a predator stalking the living through alleyways and abandoned thoroughfares. By mid-morning, exhaustion presses heavily. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your gut, and your mind struggles to remain sharp. Yet pausing is impossible. Every alleyway conceals fevered humans, corpses, or unseen dangers. Even open streets are treacherous. Movement is essential, stillness invites death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet fully aware of your surroundings. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying allow no respite. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London under the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually threatened by death. As the morning stretches on, the grim truth becomes undeniable: surviving even a single day in this city is a test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you endure, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. As evening approaches, London transforms into a city that feels more alive with terror than with life. The shadows lengthen, twisting unnaturally across cobblestones littered with refuse and corpses. Fires burn weakly in abandoned doorways, their smoke curling into the damp air. The stench of decay, disease, and human suffering hangs thick, infiltrating every breath. Each step is a gamble, each shadow a potential threat, and each sound, a groan, a cough, a scuttle of rats, heightens the tension. You move cautiously, sticking close to walls and avoiding open spaces where carts carrying the dead might appear without warning. Occasionally, a fevered human stumbles past, coughing violently, skin mottled and blackened, eyes glazed over. You freeze, muscles taut, mind calculating the safest path forward. One misstep, one shared breath, one careless touch could end your life instantly. Survival requires constant vigilance, patience, and unflinching attention to every detail. Hunger claws relentlessly at your stomach. The streets offer little sustenance: moldy bread, decayed vegetables, and partially eaten fruit abandoned by the desperate. You spot a half-rotted apple near a wall. Its stench is nauseating, yet necessity forces you to take a cautious bite. The morsel provides temporary energy, allowing you to continue moving. In London during the Great Plague, nourishment is inseparable from peril, every choice is a negotiation with death. The few remaining humans are gaunt, desperate, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering frantically. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear and silent pleading. Any interaction could be deadly. Compassion is impossible here. London has rewritten the rules: adaptability, vigilance, and self-preservation are the only keys to survival. Sentiment is fatal. Rats scurry boldly along the edges of streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you learn a harsh truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, and constantly alert. The city seems alive, feeding on weakness and punishing hesitation. Distant church bells toll, each chime marking another life claimed by the plague. Numbers have lost meaning, only the omnipresence of death matters. Even the most careful and vigilant cannot evade it indefinitely. London seems to breathe despair, a predator stalking the living relentlessly. By nightfall, exhaustion presses heavily. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your gut, and mental fatigue clouds your thoughts. Yet stopping is impossible. Every alleyway may conceal fevered humans, corpses, or hidden hazards. Even open streets offer no refuge. Movement is essential, stillness invites death. You crouch in a shadowed doorway, hidden yet hyper-aware of your surroundings. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London under the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually shadowed by death. As the night stretches on, a terrifying truth becomes clear: surviving even a single day in this city is a test of endurance, calculation, and instinct. Every breath, every step, every decision is a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you endure, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time, teetering on the edge of madness and survival. The first light of dawn creeps over London, pale and weak, barely piercing the thick haze of smoke, fog, and rot. The streets are still littered with refuse, abandoned belongings, and corpses, but for a moment, the city feels eerily quiet. The fires in the doorways sputter and die, leaving shadows to stretch longer, more menacing. Every breath still carries the stench of decay and disease, but the faint warmth of sunlight brings a fragile sense of hope. You move cautiously, sticking to the walls, avoiding open spaces where the carts of the dead might appear. Fevered humans groan and stumble past, their eyes glazed, their bodies mottled and blackened. You freeze, muscles tense, mind calculating every movement, every step. Survival in London during the Great Plague has been a relentless test of vigilance, patience, and instinct. One misstep could have ended everything. Hunger is sharp and insistent. The streets have offered little sustenance: moldy bread, decayed vegetables, and half-eaten fruit abandoned by the desperate. A rotting turnip, discarded near a wall, is your only choice. Its smell is revolting, yet necessity forces a cautious bite. The morsel sustains you, giving enough strength to continue moving. In this city, nourishment is inseparable from risk, and every choice is a negotiation with death. The few remaining humans are desperate, gaunt, and wary. You pass a small family huddled in a doorway, whispering quietly. Their eyes meet yours briefly, wide with fear, a silent plea for safety. Compassion is impossible, survival allows no sentiment. London has rewritten the rules: only adaptability, vigilance, and self-preservation matter. Rats move boldly along the edges of the streets, weaving between corpses and debris. Observing them, you recognize a brutal truth: instinct and adaptability outweigh morality and sentiment. To survive, you must emulate them, silent, watchful, and perpetually aware. The city seems alive, feeding on fear, punishing hesitation, and rewarding cunning. Church bells toll in the distance, marking another day claimed by death. Numbers have no meaning, only the omnipresence of mortality matters. Even the most careful, vigilant, and resilient cannot escape it forever. London breathes despair, a predator stalking the living relentlessly. Exhaustion presses heavily on you. Your legs ache, hunger twists sharply in your gut, and mental fatigue clouds your judgment. Yet pausing is impossible. Every alleyway hides fevered humans, corpses, or unseen hazards. Even open streets offer no safety. Movement is essential, stillness invites death. Crouched in a shadowed doorway, hidden but fully alert, you feel the weight of every moment you have survived. Sleep is impossible. Hunger, fear, stench, and the cries of the dying leave no room for rest. Survival demands vigilance, endurance, and the willingness to compromise morality. Life in London during the Great Plague is fragile, fleeting, and perpetually overshadowed by death. As the pale light of dawn spreads across the streets, a grim realization settles in: surviving even a single day in this city has been a triumph of instinct, endurance, and calculation. Every breath, every step, every choice has been a negotiation with mortality. And yet, despite the relentless danger, you have endured, one careful, tense, measured moment at a time. For the first time, there is a fragile sense of victory. The city remains merciless, the plague unyielding, but you, against all odds, have survived. London under the Great Plague has tested humanity itself, revealing that survival is not about courage or strength, but about vigilance, adaptability, and an unflinching will to live.